Seoul was never kind to outsiders, especially not to someone like Ji-won. She had clawed her way into one of the most prestigious media companies in Korea, Hanjin Group, without money or connections. Her only tools were grit, long nights, and an unshakable belief that she could carve out a place for herself in a world built to keep people like her out. Ji-won wasn't just ambitious, she was angry. Angry at the system that favored nepotism over talent. Angry at the executives, who looked down on her because she didn't go to the right school. And most of all, angry at Minho, the cold, arrogant heir to the entire Hanjin Empire. Minho didn't need to prove anything. He was born into success. With his perfect suits, sharp jawline, and a voice that dripped with quiet superiority, he was everything Ji-won despised. Their first meeting was a disaster. It happened during a press event for Hanjin's new entertainment division. Ji-won was rushing to set up the final details when she tripped over a loose wire, sending a full cup of coffee straight onto Minho's white shirt. Gasps filled the room. Ji-won froze, heart pounding. "I'm so sorry," she said quickly, reaching for napkins. "I didn't mean—" Minho stepped back, eyes narrowing. His voice was calm, but it cut through the noise like a blade. "Unbelievable," he muttered, wiping his sleeve. "You don't belong here." Ji-won stiffened. "Excuse me? This isn't your world," he said, looking around as if everyone should see what he saw. A girl playing dress-up in a company too big for her. Maybe next time, leave the coffee in the kitchen. The crowd chuckled nervously. Ji-won felt her face burn. She wanted to say something sharp, something cutting, but she held her tongue. For now. But later that night, alone in her apartment, she remembered the look in his eyes. Not just annoyance, but contempt. That was the moment she decided. He will regret this. And she made sure he did. A few days later, Ji-won discovered an old photo buried in the HR archives. Minho at age 10, dressed in a ridiculous pirate costume for some corporate charity gala. His hair was styled awkwardly, and he looked deeply unamused. She sent it to the office network under the subject line, "Future CEO or Halloween party fail." It spread like wildfire. Minho walked into the office the next day to laughter, whispers, and even a few coworkers pretending to sword fight with pens. Ji-won watched from her desk, sipping tea like nothing had happened. That evening, her inbox exploded. From Minho Han. Subject: New assignment. Ji-won, effective immediately. You've been reassigned to lead the rebranding project for our rural news segments, the one no one wants. Congratulations, I'm sure you'll do something with it. She clenched her teeth. It was punishment disguised as opportunity. The project was a graveyard for careers, boring, thankless, and doomed to fail. But Ji-won didn't back down. She threw herself into it with fury, determined to prove him wrong. And yet, despite everything, there were moments. Moments when she caught him watching her across the conference table. When he asked her opinion, during meetings, just a little too often. When their hands brushed while picking up the same document, and neither pulled away fast enough. Once, after a late-night deadline, they were the last ones in the office. Ji-won stood by the window, looking down at the neon-lit streets below. Minho joined her without a word. They didn't speak for a long time. Then he said, almost quietly, "You're stubborn." She glanced at him. "You're annoying." He smirked. "That's not exactly news." She rolled her eyes. "No, but it needed to be said." There was a pause. The kind of silence that says more than words ever could. Finally, Minho turned to her. "Why are you still here? You hate this place." "I stay," she said, "because I can." He studied her for a second, then nodded once. "We'll see how long that lasts." Just when Ji-won thought things couldn't get worse, they did. Minho's father, Chairman Han, announced a new joint venture between their departments, a pilot program. A chance to create something groundbreaking in digital media. And the two leads? Ji-won and Minho. Chairman Han made it clear. Minho will mentor her. I want results, no excuses. Mentorship. It was a joke. They couldn't stand each other. But starting Monday, they'd be working together. Every day, alone. Ji-won stared at the memo in disbelief. Minho, standing beside her, exhaled sharply. This is going to be hell. She shot him a glare. For you, maybe. But deep inside, something stirred. Not hatred. Not quite. Something else. The first week of forced mentorship was pure torture. For both of them. Jiwon sat across from Minho at the conference table every morning, scribbling notes with sharp strokes while pretending not to notice how he watched her when she wasn't looking. Minho, for his part, tried to focus on strategy slides and budget reports, but his eyes kept drifting to her hands, ink-stained, always moving, always working. They bickered constantly. She accused him of being lazy. He said she overcomplicated everything. But beneath the surface, something was shifting. One night, after hours of back-and-forth edits and heated debates over a marketing campaign, Jiwon suddenly slumped forward, clutching her stomach. Minho barely had time to react before she slid out of her chair. "Jiwon!" he called, catching her just before she hit the floor. She was pale, trembling, and barely conscious. Without thinking, Minho threw his jacket over her shoulders and carried her out of the office to his car. At the hospital, the doctor confirmed what Minho already suspected. Exhaustion, malnutrition, stress. "She's been pushing herself too hard," the nurse said gently. Minho stayed by her side all night. He didn't leave when visiting hours ended. He didn't complain when the coffee machine broke. He just sat there, watching her sleep, wondering why it hurt so much to see her like this. When she finally woke up, blinking against the fluorescent lights, the first thing she saw was him. Disheveled, tired, but still there. "You collapsed," he said flatly. She groaned. "Great. That's exactly how I wanted you to see me." He handed her a cup of lukewarm tea. "You could have just asked for help." "I don't need your pity," she muttered. "I'm not offering pity," he said. "I'm offering concern." That night, after they left the hospital together, Jiwon invited him to her apartment for dinner, more out of guilt than gratitude. She made instant ramen, and they ate in silence until she opened a bottle of cheap wine she'd been saving. By the third glass, the walls were down. "I never wanted to fight you," she admitted, staring at the ceiling. "I just wanted you to see me, to treat me like I mattered." Minho looked at her, surprised. "You always mattered." She laughed bitterly. "Not to you." He didn't deny it. He couldn't. Instead, he leaned back and said quietly, "My father doesn't think I matter either." She turned to look at him, confused. "My entire life has been about proving I'm worthy of the name Han. I don't even know who I am outside of that. And you came in here like fire. You didn't care about my name or my money. You challenged me." Jiwon blinked. "I hated you." Minho smirked. "Yeah, I know." There was a pause. Long, heavy, full of things neither of them could say out loud. Then slowly, he reached out and brushed a strand of hair from her face. And that was when her phone rang. It was a man named Daniel Park, charming, well-dressed, and very interested in Jiwon. He was a rising CEO from another company, and he had started coming around the office more often, always finding excuses to talk to her. Minho noticed. Of course he did. But nothing prepared him for the charity gala, where he saw Jiwon laughing beside Daniel, her hand resting lightly on his arm as they chatted under the soft glow of the ballroom lights. Jealousy hit him like a punch to the gut. Later that night, when Minho escorted Jiwon home, the air between them was tense. "You like him," he said, voice low. She frowned. "What?" "That guy, Daniel. You like him." She hesitated. "He's nice." Minho stopped walking. "Nice isn't enough." She turned to face him. "And what are you, Minho? What do you want from me?" He didn't answer right away. Instead, he stepped closer. His hand brushed hers. Her breath caught, and then, under the pink canopy of cherry blossoms blooming along the street, he leaned in. Their lips were inches apart when her phone buzzed again. "Daniel." Minho pulled away instantly. Jiwon sighed. "I should go." He let her walk away, without a word. The next few weeks passed in a blur. Jiwon spent more time with Daniel, going to dinners, art exhibits, even weekend trips. Minho buried himself in work, avoiding her as best as he could. Until one day, he received an email. Subject: International Transfer Offer. Dear Ms. Jiwon Kim, we are pleased to inform you that your application for the International Executive Program has been accepted. You will be relocating to our New York branch starting next month. His heart stopped. He ran to her office. Too late. Her desk was empty. A co-worker handed him a small note. I had to go. I needed something new. Minho stood there, stunned, and for the first time in his life, he felt something terrifying. Loss. Because now he knew the truth. He didn't hate Jiwon. He loved her. And now she was gone. Thichu. First few weeks without Jiwon were unbearable. Minho told himself he was fine. That he didn't miss her sarcasm, her stubbornness, or the way she challenged him every step of the way. But silence had a strange way of speaking louder than words. And in the silence that followed her departure, Minho began to hear things he hadn't noticed before. How much she had changed him. He found it hardest to ignore during meetings. He would catch himself waiting for her sharp comment from across the table, only to remember she wasn't there anymore. He missed the way she rolled her eyes when someone said something pointless, or how she always took notes in the margins of documents, adding, "Clever ideas no one else thought of." One evening, unable to sleep, Minho found himself standing outside Jiwon's old apartment. The building was quiet. The lights dimmed behind most windows. Her unit was empty now. Just a hollow space where she used to live. Still, he knocked. The new tenant, confused but kind, let him inside. Nothing remained of her. No furniture, no photos, no scent. But on a shelf left behind by the previous owner, he found a notebook. It was covered in dust, like it had been forgotten. He opened it. Page after page was filled with scribbles, thoughts, quotes, ideas. Some were work-related, others weren't. He says I'm impossible. But maybe that's the point. I think I hate him because I understand him too well. He hides behind his name, but I know who he really is. There were even sketches. Small, rough drawings of him in different moods. Annoyed, distracted, thoughtful, even smiling slightly. Minho closed the book slowly. Something inside him cracked. Later that week, he visited his mother at their family estate. She was one of the few people who still spoke to him like a son, not a chaebol heir. She poured tea while they sat under the soft glow of lanterns in the garden. I heard Jiwon left, she said gently. Minho looked away. Yeah. His mother studied him carefully. Are you okay? He hesitated. Then quietly he said, I think I loved someone before I knew what love really was. His mother didn't react in shock or joy. She simply nodded, as if she had known all along. You're lucky, she said, sipping her tea. You found her, even if it was too late. But Minho wasn't ready to believe it was over. Meanwhile, in New York, Jiwon was thriving. Her contract at the international office had been everything she hoped for. Fast-paced, challenging, full of opportunity. She worked hard, made friends, traveled. People admired her drive, her confidence, her independence. But at night, lying in bed, she felt something strange. Loneliness. Not because she lacked company. Not because she wasn't successful. Because Minho wasn't there. She told herself it was nostalgia. A temporary ache for the life she'd built before leaving Seoul. But deep down, she knew the truth. She had fallen for him. And she had run. She remembered clearly the moment she decided to leave. It was the night under the cherry blossoms, when they almost kissed. When she saw the way he looked at her, and realized he wasn't seeing an enemy anymore. He was seeing someone he could love, and that scared her more than anything. So she left before she lost herself completely. Months passed. Then came the news. An invitation to a charity gala hosted by Hanjin Group. Minho's engagement announcement. Jiwon stared at the message on her phone, heart pounding. She had returned. To Seoul a week earlier, her contract fulfilled. She hadn't planned to attend any events, hadn't wanted to face anyone. But now, seeing his name linked to another woman's, it felt like losing something she never truly had. The night of the gala arrived. Ji-won wore a black dress, elegant, but simple. She kept her hair loose, her makeup natural. She didn't want to stand out. She slipped into the ballroom unnoticed, taking a seat near the back. From there, she watched Min-ho move through the crowd, charming and composed as ever. He looked good, better than she expected, confident, in control. Beside him stood his fiancée, beautiful, poised, everything a chaebol heir should marry. Ji-won turned to leave. That's when the host called his name. Min-ho stepped onto the stage. He adjusted the microphone, scanned the room, and paused. Their eyes met for just a second. Then he began to speak. "This isn't about my engagement," he said, voice calm but firm. "This is about something far more important." The room fell silent. Min-ho looked straight ahead, as if addressing someone beyond the audience. "There was a woman who changed me," he continued. "She challenged me, broke down walls I didn't know I had built. She made me feel things I couldn't explain, and I let her go." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Ji-won stood frozen. "I don't regret loving her," Min-ho said. "I regret not telling her sooner." A long pause. Then softly he added, "Wherever you are, I hope you know that I loved you. Still do." Silence. Then applause. Hesitant at first, then growing. Min-ho stepped off the stage, ignoring the calls from his father, his fiancée, his advisors. He walked straight toward the back of the room, toward Ji-won. When he reached her, he stopped. They stood inches apart. Neither spoke. Finally he whispered, "I told you once you didn't belong here." She swallowed. "And now?" He smiled faintly. "Now I know we both do." The next day after the gala, Seoul was buzzing. Min-ho's speech had gone viral within hours. People dissected every word he said, speculated about his engagement, and wondered who the mysterious woman was standing at the back of the room. Ji-won avoided the internet for as long as she could. But eventually, curiosity got the better of her. She watched the video, once, twice, and each time, her heart ached in a different way. He had meant it. Every word. But words weren't enough anymore. She needed to hear it from him, face to face. They met the next morning at a quiet cafe near the bookstore where she used to work before leaving for New York. The air between them was heavy with all the things they hadn't said. Ji-won didn't waste time. "You broke my heart once," she said, arms crossed. "Why should I believe you've changed?" Min-ho looked at her, really looked at her, and saw not just the woman who had challenged him, but the one who had shaped him. "Because I'm not the same man," he said quietly. "You made me see that success without love is meaningless." She didn't respond right away, just studied him, searching for any trace of the arrogance she once hated. "I don't want your apologies," she said finally. "I want proof." And he gave it to her. Within weeks, Min-ho made the most shocking decision of his life. He stepped down from Hanjin Group. Not temporarily, not on leave, forever. His father disowned him publicly. His fiancée ended their engagement with a single press release. The media declared him a fool, a disgrace to his name. But none of it mattered. What mattered was finding peace. Together. They moved into a small apartment above a second-hand bookstore in Itaewon. It was tiny, with creaky floors and a view of the city that wasn't perfect, but somehow felt like home. Ji-won took a job at a local startup, helping young entrepreneurs build their brands. For the first time, she loved going to work, not because of the prestige, but because of the impact. Min-ho opened a small cafe across the street. It wasn't fancy. No luxury branding or five-star chefs. Just good coffee, warm pastries, and a quiet corner where people came to talk, to heal, to begin again. They called it Second Chances. And it became more than a business. It became a symbol of everything they'd fought for. One evening, after closing the shop, Min-ho asked Ji-won to walk with him. They wandered through the streets, hands brushing, but never quite holding. The city lights flickered above them, casting soft shadows on their faces. When they reached the cherry blossom tree where they almost kissed years ago, he stopped. She turned to him. He pulled out a small velvet box. Her breath caught. "I can't promise perfection," he said, voice steady despite the nerves. "I can't promise an easy life. But I can promise this. I will always fight for us. Always choose you." Tears welled in her eyes as he dropped to one knee. "Marry me, Ji-won." She didn't answer right away. Instead, she looked up at the tree, remembering the girl she once was, angry, guarded, afraid to fall. Then she looked down at the man kneeling before her. No longer a prince, no longer a CEO, but simply the man who had loved her when she least expected it. "Yes," she whispered. He stood, slipping the ring onto her finger, and pulled her into his arms. And in that moment, under the pink canopy of blooming cherry blossoms, the past finally let go. They walked home hand in hand, older, wiser, deeply in love. Ji-won leaned her head on his shoulder. "You hated me first," she whispered. Minho smiled. "And now I love you forever."